Yo, guys, it's Kyle coming at you from Bane's Film Reviews. This is episode 7 in my series of interviews, and I am excited to sit down across from Scott Schiaffo, who many of you know as the Chewlies Rep from Clerks and Clerks 3. But we're here to talk about the entire scope of his career. I'm excited to sit down, like I said. So, Scott, thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight, spending some time. How's everything going?
Really well, man. Really well. Obviously, it's a very exciting time with the new film out.
Yeah,
So
I'm
yeah,
sure.
a real roller coaster ride too for me. Because I don't want to get into a bummer, but people who know me personally now know my dad passed shortly after the movie came out.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he had a good run. He was 90. He's going to be 96.
Oh, wow. Well, good
So
for him.
yeah, he did well, but the last week or so it got rough, and unfortunately, just after we did the Beacon show in New York,
Hmm.
he had to go on hospice, and then he was gone. But I point that out only because life is this crazy roller coaster. I mean, I
Yeah.
couldn't have been any more high at the Beacon Theater, and then a few days later, I was just like empty and low. So it was really just a good life lesson in some ways, but it didn't change anything. I mean, the movie's doing well. We're getting really wonderful feedback.
Yeah. It was it was my favorite film for of the year.
Oh,
Absolutely my
excellent.
favorite film of the year. My wife felt the same way. She thought it was fantastic. We were really enjoyed it. I mean, we enjoyed all of the films from the Ask Universe, but this one was different in so many ways. It was much more emotionally relevant than a lot of the other ones were. Um, touch on a lot more serious topics than some of the other ones had. Um, Kevin outdid himself with this one for sure. And being able to bring back all of these individuals, yourself included, is just incredible. It was a ton of fun. It was an emotional roller coaster. We were just, I was really glad that I was able to be a part of it in the sense that I got to help promote it. Um,
That is awesome. Thank you.
yeah, of course. So I I believe I believe I'm correct. You're from Jersey, correct?
From New Jersey, my whole life, northern New Jersey.
Perfect. I'm from Jersey as well.
Yeah, I saw
So
that. Just now I saw that on your Facebook.
yeah. Different part of Jersey for sure. We're more like central, closer to Philly area. Um, but we get a terrible rap. New Jersey does. I feel like everybody that's not from New Jersey hates New Jersey.
Well, we've been through some weird crap. We've got Springsteen, Bon Jovi. We've got some really cool other bands. Everybody knows I won't list everybody. We got some great music. We've got Kevin Smith.
Hmm.
We've got see the Sopranos put it on the map, but
Yeah.
then everybody thought anybody who was Italian in New Jersey was connected.
Yeah.
And for years, because I'm an Italian guy, and I didn't look like this back then. I was always short hair and clean cut. I
Hmm.
really looked a lot like Chris. Um, Everybody thought, well, you got to get on the Sopranos. You got to get on the Sopranos. You got to get on the Sopranos. And it kind of soured me a little bit on the show initially, which is
Yeah.
silly because then I binged it when it was done and was blown away, of course.
Right.
But Jersey Shore did a lot of damage. The show
Oh my
Jersey Shore,
goodness.
yeah. For a while there were a lot of people thinking that that's what Jersey was.
Yeah, I around the time that came out, I was cruising a lot with my grandparents, and I would meet a lot of people from all over the country, and all of them thought we just walked around, fist bumping and stuff like that. And
Right.
we're nothing like that. The majority of those people aren't even from New Jersey.
I know.
So yeah, it's a shame. But so what are some of your favorite places in Jersey? Some of your favorite things in New Jersey?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, I'm old as salt, but when I was a kid, we had Palisades Park, but
Okay.
that's long gone. God, that's a good question. It's hard to answer because I mean, I love this. I love my state, but I love New York City a lot too. And
Mm,
being in Bergen County, I'm 15 minutes from the Bridger Tunnel. I've been in this area my whole life, so I could pop in and out. a lot. And Hoboken is probably one of my favorite places in New Jersey to be. I love
Okay.
Hoboken. And I love going into the city, Lower East Side. And although it's such a different place now, I mean, I sort of am nostalgic for the New York of the 70s, 80s, and even 90s.
Mm,
Very different now. But so I guess that's some of the quick answers. Jay and Silent Bob Stash now, of course, that's a favorite place.
mm.
The Count Basie Theater is becoming a favorite place because we do a lot of events there. Kevin just bought a theater down there.
I heard, yeah.
Yeah, the Atlantic Highlands Theater, and that's going to be one of my favorite places, I'm sure. Obviously, I'm partial, but it's a big part of my professional life. So,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then obviously having this opportunity to take part in a film that, is filmed in Jersey, made by people from New Jersey, a lot of people from the New Jersey, New York area. How did you find yourself being a part of that?
well, it's funny because the old myth, or for the longest time, the myth was everybody that was in the first film was a friend or a family member. And
Yeah.
that's simply not true. As we all know now, there were auditions. Brian O'Halloran, Marilyn Gigliotti, Lisa Spoonhour, rest her soul, myself. We were just actors that saw the audition notice. And I'm from an hour and a half away. So I didn't know
Okay.
those folks at all. I just saw the ad. And back in the early 90s, it wasn't every day you saw somebody filming a movie in New Jersey because back
Yeah.
then we were filming on film, it was a big deal. And no cell phones, no internet was a infant, and no real cell phones, or I guess there were flip phones maybe at some point in the early 90s, but it's a different world. So I saw the audition notice, and thankfully I went, and they did prepared monologues the first night you went. You didn't read from
Okay.
the script. You did a prepared monologue, and I did my monologue. I did a monologue from the movie Diner, actually.
Hmm.
And I didn't think I did very well, which is usually the case. Whenever I don't think I did well, I get a call back. And then when I think I killed it, I don't, the phone never rings. But lo and behold, about a week later, somebody from Kevin's production office, or whatever it was at the time, because it was in its infancy then,
Yeah.
it wasn't Kevin himself, called me back and said, "We'd like you to have you come down and read from the script now." So I was like, "That'd be great." And I went down and I read from the script, and it was the Chewlies guy. And in the original script, there's the two Chewlies scenes, and in the uncut version, you could really see how it was originally written. It's quite
Mm.
lengthy, the second scene, and even the first scene is a little longer than it is in the Miramax cut. So he gave me the script. He said, "Chewlies guy," and I read, the first part, and then Jay and Bob come in, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So we did it, and we came in the room, and I read with them, and they liked it. He said, "Okay, now the second scene." I said, "Second scene?" I said, "I thought that was it." He's like, "No, there's a whole other big scene." I'm like, "Whoa!" So we went through that, and they liked what I did, and I don't know if I was off. I can't remember anymore if they offered it that night or if they called me afterwards and then offered it. Might have been at the second reading, and
Oh
we were
well,
just in. Yeah,
very cool. What's that like when he walks in and says you have another scene to do? Is it fear? Does fear set in, or is it excitement?
it's excitement, and I felt like a bonehead because I didn't realize that after a couple of pages of Jay and Bob, there was more Chewlies guy.
Yeah.
Nobody really explained anything to me. That's all I ever got, by the way, too, which is not uncommon. All I ever had was the Chewley scene. So a year later, when it was finished and cut and edited, and he had his first rough cut, he sent us all a VHS. That was the first time I knew anything of what became before or after or what the movie really was.
Oh wow.
And that was a mind blower. I was blown away. I was so happy to be a part of it. But never in a million years did I think it would get the sort of broad acceptance it's come to enjoy over the years. I figured this will be a little cult thing because
Yeah.
it was gritty, and it was the language was really crude. It really pushed the envelope.
Mm.
I thought, well, we probably will not get any kind of major overlap. And then the next thing you know, it does great at Sundance, and it's going to be a Miramax film. I mean,
Yeah.
I was over the moon. It was unbelievable that year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to see something skyrocket so quickly like that and just really take off and see, sequel after sequel, that's incredible. Um, and then I mean, so it's been so long between one and three. I mean, I didn't honestly watch the first Clerks or any of the films until maybe 8 months ago for the first time. I mean, I was four
Yeah.
when the first one came out, so but I'm glad that I waited so long because I think I was able to appreciate all the nuances of it and everything. Um, but what's it like reprising that role almost 30 years later?
It was a little daunting only because the second time round, my only memory, I mean, I was on the set, obviously, of the first movie, and that really was indie filmmaking, low budget, just a few people and some equipment.
Yeah,
And on this one, now I've been a part of a lot of other movies since the first Clerks,
sure.
in between, but because I associated my experience from back then, when I showed up to work on this one, and there's more crew than was in the entire cast of the last one,
Yeah.
and there's more people with headsets and gear, and you know, half a dozen people rushing up to me who know me and I don't know who they are, but they, just from the first film,
Yeah.
this was such a big deal. My own trailer with the Chewlies Gum Guys sign on it. It was like a mind blower. So like I just wanted to really please Kevin, just like I wanted to please him the first time round. And he wrote such a fun thing. There was no way it wasn't going to connect. It's just
Yeah.
every actor likes to make fun of the method. I use a little method in my approach, but I'm not
Mm,
like a method maniac or anything.
mm,
But it's funny to because that's the only character I think. See, people come back and play themselves, like Veronica,
right.
and like everybody. Rick Derris is a person.
Yeah.
The Chewlies guy was now a guy that used to come in the store, and now the guy playing him is the actor. So it's the actor that played the Chewlies guy I'm playing. You know
Yes.
what I mean? It's meta in a really weird way.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just fun, and it was just a blast. And I do see everybody. I won't say really often, but we've been doing the cons for the last 10, 15 years. So
Hmm.
I get to see people on the road. I got to know Brian very well on the road, O'Halloran,
Very cool.
Maryland. And so it was just wonderful to all be together again under that circumstance. And then at the screenings, uh, I've been to, like I said, I was at the Beacon, and he brought us all out on stage, and just one of the best nights of my life, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So I mean, people get excited when you see Brian comes back and you see Jeff come back, but the, it's really these. I don't want to discount it by saying it's a smaller role, but to
And
see
they
these
are,
and
yeah.
but to see these individuals come back in these smaller roles, those are the things that excite me. Like when I see you pop up at the end and you go, "Oh my goodness!" Like they got him to come back. Those
Yeah,
things are really cool.
yeah,
Um,
it is nice, and there's a lot of that in this.
oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. For anybody that's loved any one of those films, it's made for them for sure.
In fact, I think aside from the main cast and Ernie O'Donnell and I, a lot of the other folks aren't necessarily actors. They were
Yeah.
just people that were lived in the area, knew Kevin, and wanted to be a part of this film. Or I don't think a lot of them were pursuing acting or have pursued acting since.
Mm.
I could be wrong. I don't want to shortchange anybody, but like uh, help me out here, the roofer guy, the roofer.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's the roofer and his son.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I know they're not actors, but they came back and they love being a part of it. Um, and then there was the one woman who rents the video. I don't think she's
Yes.
been involved in acting. I would, but then again, I could be speaking out of turn. She could be doing acting, and I don't know, and she
Mm,
might be doing theater down there because they had a very active theater down there, Atlantic Highlands Theater, where a lot
yeah.
of people came from.
Yeah, that's so cool. And you mentioned that you've gotten to know some of these people like Marilyn and Brian over the years, and you post a lot of pictures of all of them. And you seem like you guys are just having a blast all the time. What's it? I don't know if I often see some cast and crews that are quite as close knit as what I see with you guys. What's it like being like that? Not, I mean, it doesn't. I'm sure there's some aspect of it that feels like work, but it doesn't look like work to others on the outside.
Well, let me debunk that. For me, it, these convention gigs are not work. They're a blessing.
Okay.
They're a beautiful, beautiful reason to see my peers, meet the fans who put us there, because without them, we don't exist. And
Mm,
that's what the people in the View Askew universe really appreciate the supporters because we know we really are grounded in that we know without the supporters, none of it exists.
yeah.
You know, Kevin went on and did a lot of different movies with a lot of big name people. You know,
Hmm.
he didn't, you know, his career is amazing, and I love the guy. And Jay was a part of a lot of those movies, and Brian and Jeff too are involved in some of them as well. But the Clerks experience is its own thing, kind of.
Yeah.
And you know, it is the one movie in his resume that they always harken back to as his that's his Citizen Kane, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and he got to do a sequel to it that I didn't know what to expect. And
Mm,
when I saw the finished cut, he showed us the cut in Rhode Island a year ago, a rough cut, and I was blown away. And then when I saw it in the theater for the first time with an audience,
yeah.
and then when I sat, if I got to watch, I saw it with an audience a few times before I got to watch it alone. And watching it
Mm,
alone is hard. I mean, I get really emotional throughout all
I'm
of it
sure.
because you know I know all those people well now, and
Mm,
it's a funny story. The costume we had a wardrobe fitting, and like I said, I only got this. I only got they call them sides, as you might know. An
mm,
actor gets sides. I only got the sides for the Chewlies guy again for this movie, and I got called into the costume fitting, and you know, like the costume fitting was a bigger deal than the whole last movie was. You know,
yeah.
like in terms of just the depth and the value that was going into that.
Sure.
So I walked in the house, a big house that they rented out just for costumes, and costume designer takes me in, and I have the tie. It's my tie, the original tie, and
Oh,
we
cool.
fitted me, and we got blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, I guess we're good. And she's like, and I don't know if I got to watch how I say this here now because a lot of people still haven't seen it. I know, and I don't know if I'm giving spoilers. I don't want to give spoilers, but you know that there's an issue with Dante
Hmm.
that I didn't know about going in at all.
Yeah.
And she says to me, "Well, the Chewlies guy is going to need another suit for this blank scene."
Yeah.
Like, what? You mean? And she's like, "Yeah." And I was just like numb because I didn't expect that at all. And driving home, I got really like I had to pull over a couple of times. I was like crying
Oh
like a
man.
baby because I know the guy personally, and I've lived with that character for 30 years too. You
Yeah.
know, so I'm like, oh my god, that I'm not, you know, it hurt. It's just like it hurt, but it hurts so good in a sense because
Right.
the movie is wonderful. It really is, and of course, yeah, I'm partial. I'm partial, but he really, really surprised me. Like this is way beyond what I thought it was going to be.
Oh yeah.
Like I think he has somehow for years he tried to reinvent himself with different types of movies.
Hmm.
And he had some success. He had some success with that with Red State. I thought Red State was amazing for
Yeah.
him. So throughout the last 25, 30 years, there were moments when he did try, you know, and he was reinventing himself. But to reinvent himself with a version of Clerks,
Yeah.
I never saw that coming. And I think the future, in a weird way, is now more wide open than ever.
Yeah, I agree. I think he set himself up in a way that it's going to be difficult for him to fail at this point. He's just really set himself up for success at this point.
Well, I know
Um,
Lions since the reboot movie. I don't know if you saw Jay and Bob reboot,
yeah,
but since the reboot movie, Lionsgate's been really on board, and since they see what's happening with this, they're really on board for whatever he has in store.
I'm
So,
sure.
like I say, the guy really reignited himself with the sequel to the original, which I'm glad. He didn't wring the life out of it, and now it's just shit. Nobody cares. It's
Right.
like it's got a brand new giant life.
Yeah. Yeah,
Amazing.
and
Amazing.
I'm glad that he revisited kind of where it all came from, and we get to see all the nuances again. We get to see all those characters again. And while he's obviously the main component of that, that doesn't this doesn't happen without people like you guys and everybody else. So thank you for that. It was a touching movie, and I really do appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you. That's wonderful.
Of course. And then touching back on the relationships with everybody, I they just seem like genuinely good people. I mean, obviously, I don't know them like you do, but they seem like genuinely good people. They seem like fun people. You got to have some good stories. That,
Well, they are. I mean, it is true. Brian O'Halloran, over the last 10, 15 years, has really become a very dear friend. And it's a friendship that was born out of and steeped in the professional relationship.
mm,
And to this day, it's probably, I don't know if it's 50-50 or if it's 60-40 on the professional side, because we're not buddy buddy, let's say,
mm,
he lives, we don't live close to each other. So when we do see each other, it's usually professional. But
mm,
he's been really good to me on the road. Like he's taken me around a lot. Whenever he comes through Jersey, if I'm on the bill with him, we go together. We carpool. So we've got a lot of miles in together,
yeah.
and you get close that way. Marilyn, she's a sweetheart. Jay is a Jay is a enigma. He really is. I haven't spent that to this day. I still haven't spent that much time around him.
Mm,
Not at a gig. Like we've never really been in something where, like, I've never been to dinner with Jay, like I
okay.
have with Brian and Marilyn a million times. Uh, Jeff Anderson, he's another sweetheart. I think a lot of people thought that, there was a time when the idea was he was the one holding up Clerks 3, and there was a lot of hate out there for him on the
Yeah.
internet. But nobody, people don't know the inside story. There was a lot of crap that was going on with that. He had a
Mm,
lot of beef that was real, you know.
okay.
So, but that's all been, ironed out, and he's a really sweet guy. We've done being on the road the last couple of years too. At
Great.
shows, I've seen him at all of these things, and Kevin is great, and the comic book men are pretty cool guys. Mike Zapsik and Ming Chang and Brian Johnson. I did one of his films, Vulgar.
Mm,
Um, yeah, they are. It's a weird, funky cinema family. It really is.
yeah.
We are, but it's kind of funny. It's kind of like a. I don't want to compare us to anything really monumentally big like the Beatles or what. But like the Beatles would always say that only the four of them know what it was like in the Beatles because
Right.
they were really all in it together.
Yeah.
And there's an element of that is true with this. Like my wife knows me almost as long as I met her a couple of years after the original Clerks came out.
Mm,
And she gets it and she's been supportive. But really only the one like it's a very personal, weird trip. It really is. Like they asked us to come and do a video shoot for Logic, the rapper,
okay.
and it's done at the Quick Stop, like it's a day at the Quick Stop. So
Oh well.
we're all in costume, and so I got to see everybody like a couple of weeks back, and it was fun and it went well. But you know, I guess the point I'm making is like it only it's a shared experience that you're not going to have with that many other people,
Hmm.
not even my partner in life. You know, I've had every other experience with her, but the experience of being in that film and then living it out these last 25 years, 30 years, you know, it's informed my entire professional life and personal life in many ways. Like
Yeah.
I could look back at my life before Clerks and then after Clerks, you know, because I was already an older person. I mean, and now I'm old as hell, but I don't know, you know, 30's not old, but back then 30 was old because all of those guys were like 21, 22, 23. And I was 30 when the movie came out. I was 28 when we shot it. So I was actually pivoting out of music back into acting. And
Yeah.
I was fortunate to get Clerks. I had been doing music all in my 20s. So I pivoted at the right time, apparently. And I got Clerks. And then when that did really well and sort of put us all on the map, I kind of had to stick with the acting and I put the music, you know, I still did it for my personal pleasure and I still worked with bands and worked with music,
Hmm.
but I wasn't in it immersed the way I was in films.
Yeah.
And now, 30 years later, I think I'm pivoting back again, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That.
I think I'm going to put more energy into, I'd like to get back into a band that plays out live
Okay.
music. It's really needed now.
Yeah.
And I miss it so much. So I'm not sure how that's going to all work out or whatnot, but because I've been playing music since I'm 5 years old.
Okay.
You know, the acting came much later. It came in high school a little bit, and then college,
Hmm.
and then I kind of put a plug in it to do music, and then I went back to pursuing film acting in my late 20s, and very quickly I was fortunate to get the Clerks gig.
Yeah. Yeah. My brother-in-law is trying to get into live music. Went to school for it in Philly and trying to get in there. They just moved up to Bayonne to be a little bit closer to the city.
Very
So
nice.
yeah, yeah. So he's kind of in the same boat with you, trying to find something because
Yeah.
he wants to perform live. That's what he wants to do. So kudos to both of you because that's I can tell from talking to him that's not an easy deal.
No,
Um,
I mean, if you're fortunate to get a gig where, like, I'm not sure what kind of gig I will be looking for, but I do have some connections, thanks to the Clerks
mm,
success, with bands that are a little more established that might, you know, it might be cool to have the Chewlies guy as your lead guitar player.
yeah,
You know, like the Lemonheads, you know, but you didn't hear that here.
nope,
That
didn't
kind
hear
of
it.
thing. You know,
Yeah,
Black Crows, hello. Uh, well, you know, you never know what could happen. Um, Life has been a beautiful journey these last 25 years, and I I'm blessed with a lot of wonderful things, amazing people. The journey of Clerks. Financially, it's an up and down thing. I'm not, you know, sitting on some mountain of money at all.
mm,
I am okay. Some months are better than others. Sometimes
sure.
my wife and I have some fun money. Sometimes it's a little bit of a tight squeeze. But the payoff or the I don't want to say the payoff. I'm trying to think of the word I want, but that's the price you pay for the
Yeah,
freedom of pursuing the acting and the music, and
yeah,
waiting till something comes along. You know, uh, convention gigs are a great way to keep uh, money coming into, which is a
yeah.
beautiful thing. That didn't exist when I was growing up, really.
Okay.
You know, that's a world that started in the mid '90s, and it wasn't until the late '90s, early 2000s that it was a thing where you were signing things for money. You know, I grew up in a
Yeah.
world where, you know, actors, musicians, sports figures, politicians, whoever they were, comics, if you caught them somewhere, they signed because they signed. You know,
Hmm.
that's a lot of things. That has to do with the internet, has to do with eBay. has to do with monetizing, the collecting, um, and the people from Clerks are not raping people. You know,
Yeah.
it's $20, $25 tops from almost any of us. I think Jay and Bob get a little more, but or Jeff and Brian get a little more, but they've earned it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I mentioned earlier how a lot of people know you as a Chewlies guy, but as you brought up, you you've done a lot of music. You helped compose music for almost 20 projects. What's so I unfortunately haven't had anybody from that side of the industry on yet. But fortunately, I have you here. So what's that side of the industry like? Because I know I get the writing, I get the directing, I get the acting aspects of it, but music is not my forte by any means. So what's that side of the industry like?
Well, again, a lot of the gigs were a result of a lot of the films I did music for. I was also in, so I was like a threefold. At one point, I was doing a lot of non-linear editing. I got good on computer,
Mm,
so at one point it was three different sort of. The paycheck included music, actor, and editor.
okay,
And it still wasn't like some monster. That was a way to beat because in indie, they don't have a lot of money. I understand that.
sure,
So that was a way to pump up my value and earn on a different level and bring other value to the film. There's a handful of things I did the music for that I wasn't in at all. Um, but music has been something that's been a passion since I was like I could barely speak, and music was. There's a picture of me like 5 years old on the floor with a little like close and play record player. Like I remember getting 45s of like Sly and the Family Stone and
hmm
Beatles and Stones and my older cousin teaching me who all these bands were. Music was just such a deep passion that to be able to do it for the screen, it's an interesting thing because unlike writing a song where the vocal is going to be the main point,
hmm
here a lot of what I was doing was creating moods and creating sort of melodic hooks that would repeat so that when you heard that certain hook, you knew something was maybe up with that character.
yeah,
And it took a while to learn some of that too, because I had only done it when I began getting these gigs. That was new to me too back in the early 2000s. But
yeah,
and now, to be honest with you, I'm kind of shying away from it a little bit, only because I'm trying to reignite the musician guy who was the band guy,
yeah,
not doing it for film, not doing it but for a band and for live mostly because now we know even if you're a very successful band, it's hard to make money on the records.
yeah.
It's a different world now than what I grew up with. I miss it, but I understand it's what it is. I love technology, and this is what technology has changed. What can you do? Music is a service now. You pay
Mm,
$8.99, you get every song ever written.
yeah, yeah. That's transitioned drastically. And
Oh,
I mean,
that
it's transitioned to the way streaming services are with Netflix and Amazon and
right,
things like that. They're just
exactly.
more readily available, which in a lot of ways is a good thing, but not as much for the people that are taking part in creating it. I would
Yeah.
imagine.
See, you keep using Kevin as example because he's one of the few examples I know well. You've got to be creative in your finding revenue streams.
Hmm
So this is a man who went out and learned how to, he harnessed the internet thanks to Ming Chen at an early time when the internet was still in its infancy. He's one of the first directors out there doing podcasting
hmm
and out there on the road doing Q&As. And that's a night with Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
So he became a celebrity from that. He became a celebrity director from doing that. And it's
hmm
another revenue stream. And believe me, it's a good one. And
I'm
now
sure.
Jay's out on the road doing amusing stories with Jay Muse. And He books all the big comedy clubs in all the big towns.
Oh, cool.
So, and the conventions are things that we all do for additional revenue stream because everything is different. There's not a ton of bread in the overall production, even if, and especially even if it is a success. I mean, there's two worlds. I think now. I think there's the giant Mondo, Marvel, DC world of money,
Yeah.
and then there's everybody else. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, it seems to be trending in that direction. And now I love the Marvel movies, so
Yeah, I mean,
um
I'm not a comic book kid like the rest of those guys. Like
mm,
those guys are all big comic book guys.
yeah,
I never really was, but I do. I grew up with Michael Keaton. I grew up with Adam West as my Batman. I
okay.
mean, I'm going to be 60 in 2 years, so
Okay.
I've been around a while. So first it was Adam West, and then you fast forward to my early 20s or mid 20s, and it was Michael Keaton, and it was like it blew us all away. So I mean, I do enjoy those movies. I enjoy the Christian Bale Batmans, and
Sure.
I enjoyed all Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, but I don't keep up at all anymore now. It's way out of my wheelhouse. I mean, I love Robert Downey Jr. I grew up really enjoying him and having
Hmm.
a parallel thing with him for a while because I have an alcohol and drug past, which I'm now
Okay.
sober very many years.
Oh,
But
congratulations.
thank you. I would tune into guys who were like me to see how they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty wild time to be in the business. I'm very thankful I got to see it in the 70s and 80s and
Hmm.
90s. And now I'm a part of it in a really fun way now to see how it works. And
Yeah, yeah. So, just to touch on this Batman's George Clooney was my Batman.
so that was the
it,
Batman. That was your
it
guy. That was the
it
Batman.
was one of the first movies I remember sitting all the way through in theaters. So I just like fell in love with those movies then. Um, yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, I was never a comic book guy. I didn't really get into I've still never read a comic book in my entire life. But like all these movies up here are like all the Marvel movies. So
Wow.
love those.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, yeah. I want to thank you again for sitting down with me. I have a couple more questions for you. But so one, I ask everybody. I seem to put everybody on the spot with this question. But so, what are some of your favorite films, and how have those films, could be the acting, the writing, whatever it was, how did it inspire you in your craft?
That's a great question. That's a really great question. Because there's a lot that I can cite, but I'll tell you that I was a big in the '80s, very inspired by Mickey Rourke.
Okay.
Angel Heart. I don't know if you've ever seen Angel Heart.
Yep.
Angel Heart is I can watch that movie once a month, um, and probably did at one point. Uh, he's so sublime. There is never a disingenuous moment on film, and I love film. I always
Mm,
wanted to work in film because film is so powerful, and I believe that the camera doesn't lie, and it's a very different medium than stage. And I would never take away anything from stage, but you get a lot of people who kind of piss on film acting, and theater is where the real actors are, or whatever.
mm,
I mean, I just think it's very different. You
yeah.
gotta you gotta know how to act for that camera. That's a whole different thing.
Hmm.
You're not filling up a theater where 100 rows back have to hear you, and you got to cry for somebody in the 100th row. It's the camera, and it's really, really intimate.
Hmm.
And it can be big and bombastic too, like Ben Hur or whatever the hell. But
Sure.
to me, it was all about acting on camera. The challenge of doing that, the challenge of like how do you play to the camera? Because now I
Hmm.
know how editing works, so I know how to get shots that I think the editor is going to have an easy time of editing together, like the
Hmm.
best stuff. Because I would rather have only my best stuff in the film than have them just throw everything in. And I learned that from editing. I started editing in early 2000s.
Hmm.
And I edited a film called Linger, writer director Tom Zanka, who had a lot of faith in me as a dramatic actor. and I edit it in such a way where I'm I'm edited out much more than he would have thought. He
Yeah.
would have thought that if I'm doing the editing, you're going to throw yourself in there every chance you get. It's not how it works. You want the
Yeah.
best bits, and you want the best bits of everybody. Because if
Hmm.
you're not serving that, then the audience is not going to dig it. It's not a popularity contest, and in some ways it could be, but
Sure.
it's about making a great narrative and telling a story and touching people and moving people with sound and vision.
Yeah.
That's why film is so amazing to me. It's sound and vision. It's not vision. A lot of indie film guys, they're really into the vision part, and the sound is like horrific, and it throws you really badly when there's bad
Yeah.
sound, or really cheesy mixing. So, so Angel Heart is a big one. The movie Hair, the movie musical Hair, that came
Okay.
out when I was 13 years old, and my mother took me to the Ziegfeld in New York City to see it, and that changed my life. I was just like, and I had to go back, and I brought my little tape recorder, and I taped the movie, and I lived the movie. I bought every magazine and newspaper article about the movie, and I just got obsessed with that movie.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and it just that opened the door. Although I'm not a movie musical guy, you're not going to see me in a movie musical anytime
Yeah.
soon, even though I'm a musician. But that movie Hair really had an impact on me. Um, Pope of Greenwich Village, another Mickey Rourke movie. Diner, another Mickey
Hmm.
Rourke. I'm a big Jarmusch fan. I like Hal Hartley.
Okay.
Uh, you know, anything Steve Buscemi did in the 80s and 90s, I'm on board with.
Yeah.
Those guys that they were doing that. They were putting a lot of Kevin Corrigan is a fine actor. He's my generation. He's actually
Hmm.
probably a little younger. They were putting like the guys in the 70s did. Scorsese's, the Coppolas, the Lucas,
Yeah.
these guys. They were putting a lot of passion on the screen. And that's what you got to do, I think. And that's again, it's a marriage of good acting because good acting with great editing becomes great acting. I've
Sure.
seen it happen. I've seen a scene edited and it's not working at all. And you come back with a different edit, and all of a sudden it's like a punch in the face. Like, what happened? So, and I'm not saying that we hide behind the editing, but you know, it's such a big combination of
Yeah.
things that are important. The acting, the direction, the writing. Without a good script, you've got nothing. The
Sure.
writers get pooped on, I think, in a bad way, which is not cool. But without a great script, you don't have a lot to go on. So you put all those together, and you're passionate about sound and vision on that screen. That's what it's about. Brian De Palma. I mean, those kind of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
People like there was like blood in the cinema then. Robert Altman. That's the stuff I grew up with.
Sure. Great, great list. I'll have to look up Hair because that's not one that I'm familiar with. Um, but yeah, Angel Heart is fantastic. That's one that I saw semi recently. I didn't get into film until like maybe the last 8 or 10 years, I guess. So I had a lot of catching up to do.
Great.
But I saw that semi recently, like I said, fantastic film. Um, and then I have one question for you, specific to you because you're from Jersey. Um, is it pork roll or is it Taylor ham?
Oh, it's Taylor.
So I had a really great time until you gave me that answer.
Well, here's the thing. I think in northern New Jersey, we all called it Taylor ham.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it
yeah.
said it on the box. I think it did.
Well,
I was
yeah,
too young to know. My mother bought all the food.
yeah, yeah. It's Taylor brand ham. Yeah,
That's what it is. I think it might have been
yeah,
Taylor ham pork roll. It might have
yeah,
said
yeah.
both. But whatever it was good and not good for you. We know that now.
It's
You might
delicious,
want
but no, it is not good for you.
to just fry up a slab of butter and salt.
Yeah, yeah. But again, thank you so much.
You
I
got
had a
it.
great time sitting down and talking to you.
I did too.
Um, Again, I for you guys watching, I have Scott Schiaffo sitting across from me again, who many of you know as the Chewlies Rep from Clerks. Um, but I encourage you to check out his other films, his other projects, because he really is a fantastic actor. and a better person that I've gotten to know in the past 40 minutes or so. I hope you have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your journey through Clerks 3, and have a good one.
You too, man. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks so much. Bye.